Hi, it's me again. I'm here to show you what I have done, which admittedly is not totally finishing my sculpt. Why, you might ask? Well, his pretty little rays are pretty simple to achieve, I think, and you've already seen me do one of his little squiggly rays pretty quickly. But the thing is, I already have 4 hours of footage. So we're gonna have to do with just his face, which took me, admittedly, way longer than I thought it would. And so for the sake of this video being an appropriate length, I am going to keep it just this guy. Next video, you will see his race as well as him being cast. Who knows, I might even take you to Reynolds Advanced Materials with me while we shop for the smooth on products that we need, because those stores are usually pretty awesome. And yeah, with all that said, I will show you the sculpting process and me using acetone to smooth out the monster clay, which is a really neat hack if you didn't already know about it. And I'll go ahead and just show you his face real quick too. I decided I was going to paint in the pupils. Don't know why it took me so long to realize that that was a possibility, but it doesn't want to focus on the sun. There we go. But yeah, he's not symmetrical, you know, don't expect your sculpt to be, but if you want to do better than I did, then look in the mirror with it more towards the beginning, because I waited till almost the end and that was a mistake. Anyways, here he is. I added some little lower eyelids and top eyelids, some cheeks, and his little chin, which is questionable. You cannot see the detail of the lips too well right now because of the acetone powdery stuff on it, but don't worry about that. That'll be gone by next video and you'll be able to see the resin anyway, so. Okay. I'll start the video, I guess. Okay, and I'm beginning with making the eyes because it's pretty creepy without them. I basically just have these little holes where I will be putting the balls that are going to be the eyeballs. It's necessary to make those little negative spaces first and kind of carve that out before you try to do the eyeball, because otherwise it's going to stick out way too much. Just like our eyes are sitting in our heads on the inside, and you can see them straight down our profile, you want that to be the effect on whatever face you're making as well, even though this one is pretty unconventional, proportionally speaking. But yeah, so I'm just smoothing those out. I wanted his eyes to be lovely and big, and so I'm trying to kind of spread them out over a large surface area so that I can paint some beautiful irises on them later. It's like I was saying in the beginning of this video, I really thought I was gonna have to make the pupils in the clay. Now, I suppose if you're doing a cast and you're not painting it, so if you're just doing a resin cast but not painting it at all, then yeah, you would need to put those details in through negative space probably in this instance. That's what I was planning on doing anyways, is kind of carving out some holes and then putting in a center for the pupil. The holes being the irises, the pupil being the positive space in the middle. I'm really glad I didn't have to end up doing that because that was going to be a pain in the butt so far as symmetry goes. And I will be painting my resin cast, so I'll just be painting it on, which I really look forward to. I think he's going to be pretty charming with that. Now, you can see me using a heat gun here. Heat guns are really good for monster clay because, as I've said before, it is way easier to work with this medium when it is warm. When it is cold, it gets a little bit crumbly, especially when you're working in teeny tiny details like this. To tell you the truth, guys, I really didn't have the right tools. These tools are great for the larger sculpts I've done in the past, but making something very small like this for the first time, I realized that not being able to use my fingers is a huge disadvantage. Now, when you use your hands with monster clay, you're naturally smoothing it out with the heat of your hand as you go, warming it up. But without that ability to use your fingers, you're having to rely exclusively on your metal tools, which usually stay pretty cold. So what you were seeing me do there is basically take my heat gun against the tool itself. You can also do that, of course, onto your sculpt if you just want to smooth out the surface a little bit. You will get rid of some of the detail by doing that, but hopefully you just leave it on there for a couple seconds just to melt the little clay crumbs. That's what I've been calling them, is crumbs. Now, of course, the best solution for that, instead of putting the heat gun on your sculpt, is to use the acetone, which you'll see later in this video. Now, one thing I wanted to tell you guys while I'm here is I really recommend trying sculpting. Just because you're not good at drawing doesn't mean that you won't be good at this, or at the very least, being good at it has nothing to do with it, right? It's just about enjoying the process, and to be honest, sculpting with your hands, it's malleable, you're bringing something to life in 3 dimensions, it's kind of therapeutic. One of my favorite YouTube channels is Uncomfy and Company, and she makes these little polymer clay characters, and they're original characters, and she's a huge inspiration to me. She said the whole reason that she got into polymer clay sculpting is just to soothe herself because she has anxiety. I think we can all kind of relate to searching for things that calm us down and put us in a nice calm mood. So this is really good for that. Also, I wanted to make an ornament because I really like ornaments. I've been wanting to make some resin ones for a long time, and I hope that this is the beginning of a series for me. As far as choosing a sun, I've always just loved the symbolism of suns. When I was a little girl, I used to run around calling myself the sun fairy. My mom said that when I was a baby, I loved the sun that was in the Teletubbies, if you remember the one that has like that weird baby face. Um, and so, yeah, it also gives life and provides literally all the elements in the universe. Not specifically our sun, but stars in general. And I think they're pretty amazing. So, yeah, that's kind of what's behind this. Um, I don't know if I mentioned it already, but I work in Days of Christmas right now at Disney Springs, so we sell ornaments there, which is pretty fun. I want to kind of tell you guys one of the mistakes I made here is working on the mouth when I had already finished it. Now, granted, it was pretty off center, but I didn't need to go back in and redo the whole dang thing. Um, I would recommend just slicing whatever feature it is off if you need to move it, so that you still have that feature intact and you can just stick it on in another place. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like pottery, but if you're attaching a piece of clay to another piece of clay, sometimes it doesn't want to stick. You can always use a little tool to make cross hatches. You can see that tool for me in the top right corner right now. It's that silver one, and it's got these little wire hairs. So just make little cross hatches, and that creates a surface for it to stick. Now, I made the cheeks just basically using little balls, sticking them on and smoothing them out from around the edges. When you're doing this, the easiest way to make any of these features really is just to start with basic shapes. Even the eyelids, I started with these little thin worms and just kind of smoothed them out in the way that would make it look most like an eyelid. And try not to overthink it. I have a habit of doing that, which is probably why I took so long with this sculpt. But, you know, with practice comes efficiency. So I'm not that practiced of a sculptor, if you will. I've really only done it a few times before. These few times were big impacts for me, but it by no means makes me experienced. This is definitely like an amateur video, if you will, but I hope to be doing more of it in the future, and it's a really useful medium to have around to make a model of basically anything or just do it for fun. I think it would be really cool to make a lot of ornaments of all kinds of different things and maybe one day sell them. And I can't wait to see how this turns out, because even though I've done sculpts and molds and casts before, I've never done it to make a resin cast, which is something I'm really looking forward to. So we're going to be using a silicone rubber mold and some white resin, which you'll be seeing next video. Another thing I want to say is it's like I said in the beginning of this video, it's very easy for things to become asymmetrical when you're making a face in clay. I really recommend going up to the mirror and just kind of comparing as often as you can to see where you're off, because seeing things in reverse helps your eyes detect some of these asymmetrical issues. I also recommend keeping a center line. Now, when I was making my sketch, I was wise enough to do that, but apparently not with the sculpt. So, yeah, I highly recommend just keeping a little line somewhere on it that helps you know, okay, that's center. So you don't go putting the nose off too far to the left like me. Luckily, it's okay to fail with this medium. I failed a lot. It's okay to fail in general. I really had to start over with a lot of these features quite a few times, and you're really not even seeing all of that work in these clips. Um, so, patience is key. And, as you do it more and more often, you will become inevitably better at it. So, just having patience with things like this is the most important thing. You can see me just making the cheeks out of the little balls, like I said. And here we're moving on to the acetone part. Now, here you see I have this canister of acetone. Please wear a mask. There's a paper cup that I use to put the acetone in. You do not want to put the acetone in anything that you plan on keeping around, because acetone dissolves just like it dissolves the clay here. It will dissolve potentially a really nice mug that you love. And it's also really bad for you if you happen to ingest any of it residually. So please use something disposable and probably use a mask. It leaves a weird residue, so hot water gets it off. Don't leave your sculpt under the hot water for too long or it'll start to melt, but that worked for me. I just dried it off with a tissue because I didn't want any fibers to be stuck to it. And yeah, here we are. Anyway, I think it turned out pretty good. It's matching my sketch pretty well at this point, as you'll be able to see in this next clip here. And I've really enjoyed the process. Thank you guys for being along with me in this process. I hope to be with you next video, where I'm finally turning this guy into a resin cast. Have a great day, and I'll see you later.